Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to start with a quote, and here it is. I'm invisible. Understand simply because people refuse to see me, like the bodies you see sometimes in circus sideshows. It is as though I have been surrounded by mirrors of distorted glass. When they approach me, they see only my surroundings, themselves, or figments of imagination. Indeed, everything and anything except me. This amazing quote comes from Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Phil Brooks. I am the Director of STEM Workforce Partnerships at the University City Science Center. It is really great to engage you all this afternoon. Keep this quote in mind as we engage our panelists this afternoon. This afternoon, we're joined by dedicated community leaders as they share details about challenges faced with employment in the region. So you've heard from companies and you've heard about their plans for equity and inclusion. Now you're going to be hearing from champions in the community taking action in their neighborhoods to make this a reality. And joining me this afternoon are Marques Brown from Mantua United, Wandukku Uwezo Naba from Black Bottom Tribe, and Gerald Bolling, also from Black Bottom Tribe. Good afternoon, gentlemen. So we are going to get started with some of the instructions for this session. Really, if folks have questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. For the last 15 minutes of this session, we really want to have this as an open dialogue. So if you have questions for our panelists, definitely go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. I have several questions for the panelists to start with. And at about the 3:45 mark, we'll open up the questions to panelists. But before we get started, I'd love to have all of our panelists introduce themselves. Say if you're a Philly native or not, if you're from the Philadelphia area, and then ultimately what kind of like drew you to agreeing to do this real talk session. So let's start with Marques. Take it away.
How's everybody doing today? My name is Marques. I'm from Mantua United, which is a newly minted organization to hopefully increase the quality of life for youth in Mantua and surrounding areas. I came here by way of my father, who was a community organizer himself, and just dedicated to the idea that everybody deserves, just to be away from negativity if we can provide that, to pull people, especially youth, away from some of the more negative elements that can swirl around us in marginalized communities like Mantua, the bottom, where I'm from. I'm here mainly because we feel not connected over our shared respect and love of equity, and marginalized people kind of coming into spaces that have they found themselves on the other side of previously.
Awesome, thank you, Marques. Gerald?
Yeah, my name is Gerald Bolling. I'm a native from the Black Bottom, 24th Ward, West Philly. What got me into this was, well, I've always been in this, but I met Phil. I forgot how I met Phil. I really did. It seemed like I've been knowing Phil like for 50 years now. But I think it was something surrounded around Drexel with Howard Pender, and also Phil. I think we connected in that way somehow because the question was out there: how can we bring our people in to our place when they get there? What are we, what can we do with them? And we gave them a couple of suggestions, and they ran, and they actually picked up those suggestions, used them, and now they were rolling pretty well. So I really like that. Oh yeah, and also Sanaya Muhammad too. She was there also. I think so. We all had met at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. But I might be. I'm getting old, y'all. I'm telling you.
It's all good. We met. That's all that matters. Let's move on to Uwezo.
You're on mute, Uwezo.
Perfect. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and I'm glad you're here. I'm kind of direct, sometimes a little blunt, so I hope you understand. My name is Wandukku Uwezo Naba. Everybody calls me Uwezo since I was 8 years old. Excuse me. please. I just finished serving 32 years in prison for a murder I didn't commit. I'm recently out. I've been out 8 months now. I had to study the law for 20 years to win my own appeal. I've always considered myself culturally conscious. I hope everybody understands what I mean by that. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't even really know the true definition of culture, and that's very important. And being the fact that I'm culturally conscious, it sickens my stomach to see the things that are happening in these neighborhoods in this day and time. And I know that God and the ancestors blessed me with certain gifts. So it would be wrong and I would be a fraud if I didn't contribute. So this is what I'm here to do. And I'm letting y'all all know that I want y'all to use me in whatever capacity you need me to be in, because I am able and willing to do so.
Awesome. That's a beautiful transition to my first question, which is what has been done to support job placement and what has not been done? So we're taking the perspectives of the three panelists, right? So let's start with Gerald. And Uwezo, do you mind muting until we get to you? Or let's just start with you, Uwezo, since you're muted. Let's go.
What do you mean? Say that again. How do you mean?
Yep. So the question is, what has been done to support job placement? So just in your perspective, from your lens, what has been done, whether it's programs, whether it's initiatives, what have you seen in your experience? And then on the other side of the coin, what has not been done? What has not been done to support job placement?
Well, that's a deep question to be asking me, Phil, seriously, because you know I'm kind of loquacious and I don't want to get too long. So I'm going to cut it kind of short. And I hope, because I think everybody on this panel is super intelligent, so they're going to know where I'm coming from. I don't believe in job placement. I believe that you got to create jobs. You have to create a job instead of looking for a job. And a job is only a temporary solution. We need to teach these kids how to gain careers. And you got to think outside the box, because when you look at the time that we're living in right now, like right now, I'm running a thrift shop down on Kensington Avenue. This place is ridiculous. What is this mayor doing? This place is ridiculous. What are the police doing? And it's easy to change things around because all you got to do is chase the drug dealers away. The junkies is going to follow the drug dealers. Wherever they go, they're going to go. So, you know, it gets to a point of, do you really care? You know, I understand the job placement, and me, I don't understand why nobody can't find a job. I'm 66 years old and been out here 8 months, and already I've been offered like 9 jobs. So, you know, they got all kind of places that you can go and acquire some type of employment. They got a place down here on Allegheny Avenue, 1952 Allegheny Avenue, called First Step. They hiring today. So it comes to a point is it the will, the drive of the person? Are they really trying to acquire a job, or do they just want to get some money for whatever they want to purchase immediately? I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem acquiring a job. Now, not saying that, you know, what works for me works for everybody else, but once again, it comes down to your incentive. I believe in education. You know, because you can't change a person's actions until you can change their mentality. So, you know, what are they thinking? They need to know certain fundamentals that I see these young people don't even know.
So that's a good transition. Marques, talking about young people and mentality, same question. What has been done to support job placement, whether it's from the youth side, adult side, what has not been done?
Well, I mean, look, I can take one example, right? So my example right now is I'm currently an assistant project manager with a developer in Brewerytown. Now, I don't have a background formally in real estate, right? My background is in management. My background is in healthcare. My background is in community, but it's not particularly in real estate. I grew my real estate background basically over the last year or so, 2 years, by being in the space, being active, trying to purchase my own commercial building, trying to walk it down, reaching out to resources. And in the midst of that, I interacted with one of the partners at my current firm. He did a lecture on building sustainably in marginalized communities, how to be thoughtful about it. I talked to a few of his the people who leased from him commercial space, Black-owned businesses, and it was refreshing. His approach was completely down to earth. It was just full of things that bring hope to people who maybe want to start a business, right, but don't have all the, you talk about barriers, right? Don't have all the, I don't have 3 years of rent saved up. I don't have a 850 credit score, but I have this product that I want to sell. Can you help me sell it in a corridor that's bustling? And he would do that. So I spoke to him about a building. We talked, and we grew the relationship over 6 months or so. And at the end of that, he, the building I was trying to acquire, it didn't work out, but I knew exactly why it didn't work out. He gave me all types of services and access that I didn't quite have. Again, these are the words of equity, right? Access, ownership, all these type of things like that. And in the midst of that, while that building didn't work out, I was offered a job. Now, why did he offer me a job, right? He offered me a job because we were in this situation where he saw that I was hungry. He saw that I had drive, but I did not clear the barriers of traditional corporate America, right? And that, to me, is a prime example of how you reach across the aisle and say, look, all right, look, you might not have X, Y, and Z box checked, but you have this or that, and I'm gonna give you a chance. And I'm gonna let you prove that you have the mettle to work for it. And a lot of us don't mind being challenged. A lot of us don't mind being put in situations where we gotta compete and win, because we can. But the problem is, if you don't get across the threshold, or you don't feel like you have the mentality, like Uwezo said, right, to get across the threshold, you feel like that's never gonna happen for me. That's not for me. And then now the jobs people tend to walk away from, they're jobs, they're not careers. No one's thinking that, man, I could be exactly where I want to be in 10 years if I do this thing. If you don't have that mentality, then it becomes very easy. So just and to address one of the things Uwezo said, so let's look at like the unemployment rate, right? So the unemployment rate tripled, and there's a lot of people who don't want jobs right now, not solely because of mentality, but also because of an extreme injection of liquidity into the system. Right? There's a lot of money flowing into the system right now that people have access to. Unemployment is plentiful. So if you're the type of person where these are the level of jobs you've always had your entire life, you never enjoyed it, you never liked it, you never felt fulfilled, and this is what you want me to go back to, I can just take this free money that's here, and that becomes the mentality. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing. That's the essence that Brother Uwezo was responding to.
Very, very good. And if you're hearing like extra besides my my mother's in the background. She's listening to this amazing conversation. She's waving me down saying no, but I'm gonna continue to put her in the spotlight too. Same question, Gerald, same exact question. So what has been done to support job placement? We've touched on mentality. Marques has touched on, in a sense, like networking or going beyond networking, right? If that person didn't see his drive and his grit and all of those amazing positive characteristics, then he wouldn't have hired them. So Gerald, please, your wisdom on this specific question. What has been done to support job placement? What has not been done to support job placement?
Well, as you know, me and you and Howard worked on what wasn't done, and that was giving out a stipend, talking about giving extra classes to people who don't have a full education. And it's not really a driving the person. It's like a lot of these kids are hurt, from day one. And you also have to remember, right? During the times right now, all these guys are getting out of jail. These guys was millionaires. You understand? So like you have to really look at that. You know what I mean? These guys was actually millionaires. They don't work for nobody. They made all their millions in drugs. You know what I mean? And they never worked a day in their life. You know what I mean? So they don't have the mentality to do that. And what you see out here now is a clash, right? So the clash is, why is there so many murders? Why is there so many people running around doing all these crimes instead of getting all these jobs that's opening, right? So it seems like you can solve your problem by getting this job, right? But here goes the thing. Like myself, I haven't been in jail 10 years, no trouble, no nothing. I still can't get a job because of whatever my record says before that time. You know what I'm saying? So they just wash me off. And this is the same thing what they're doing to these young ones. They're not going to work for pennies. They're not going to be, in their case, they say they're not going to be treated like a slave. So this is part of their mentality. So when you go out in the street and wonder why we can't walk in our own streets, and wonder why we getting the child just got murdered the other day, right on the street. You understand? You have to understand that these people are hurting. I mean, they're hurting from a lot of things, and we can't help them with everything. And this job placement, it's going to work on some, but not work on all. I mean, nobody's going to. They don't feel the love from the community anymore. So like you can tell them I'm gonna bring 1,000 jobs there, and there'd be 1,000 jobs sweeping floors, picking up trash, doing this. Like, no, we're not all about that. I mean, just like the brother said, Marques, a guy probably looked at him 6 months ago at the start. He could sweep up or something, but now he know Marques got some skills. Now he pulled Marques in and develop him. You know what I mean? So that's great. But however, a lot of these people don't want to come in and pull us in and develop us. You know what I mean? Because they look at us as crooks, as robbers, as thieves, as haggards, even our own people. You know what I mean? So you have to get that mindset. How many of these people right here actually walk down the bottom, actually just walk down there and see what's happening? A guy named Scott Filling did it, right? Me and him did that Saturday. He's seen everything. He's seen mostly all of it, right? Where people were proud about where they were at. However, it was unkept. And know who got it unkept? The people who are in control. They'd rather put alcohol on the avenue than put a real store up there that's selling food that would nourish the community in the right way. So like our whole existence from 43rd in Lancaster all the way back is Chinese store, liquor store, grocery store, a Dominican store, this store, that store. There's nothing in our neighborhood that we represent. It's nothing. And especially the Black Bottom. You understand? So like, over Mantua side, this side, that side, they're the ones who are adding into universities' plan or whatever they want to do. But still, we're missing our own workforce. I can show you pictures now. They built all these buildings in the Black Bottom, and they did not hire one person from the Black Bottom.
So that's a excellent. You guys are providing me like all these really great transitions to my next question. So continuing with you, Gerald, what are some simple solutions to ensure folks are connected to employment? So we talked about careers, we talked about mentality, we talked about the idea of networking. We talked about certain sections of the city not having the adequate resources to either train or focus their attention in a positive way to the community. Sometimes people like say the phrase, it's not rocket science, right? So what are some simple solutions to ensure that folks can get connected to employment? Just from your experience, from your wisdom, let's go with Gerald, then Uwezo, and then Marques to answer this question.
Well, the way that you can connect the people to get them involved in any with jobs or thing, make sure the jobs are actually real. Make sure that you're actually going to give somebody a living wage, so they don't have to go around and look around and try to do other things to supplement the incomes of their household. You know what I mean? And that's real. Like Penn had a thing where as though they were hiring people from around our neighborhood. So they may have hired one or two, this or that, you know what I mean, and then dropped the ball. So everybody in our neighborhood was supposed to get a lot of things from Penn, Drexel, Science Center, all these places that came in and devoured our neighborhood, you know what I mean? And then now it's like, well, what are we gonna do with them? Because they unruly. Like that's what's happening. I can tell you that they unruly down there. So what are we gonna do to give them a job? You know what I mean? So the mentality of the people is like, we don't want your jobs. You know what I mean? Because they're fake anyway. And that's their mentality. And if you want to talk to these people, I can bring some aboard for you. They don't want to hear about you trying to get them a job. They got to fill out these applications. They got to go through all this screening process. You know, because everybody know they're getting high. Everybody know they smoking weed. They're not gonna stop doing it for a $5 or $10 or a $10, $12 an hour job, where they don't have any training in the first place to even get a job after that. And that's what we had talked about, me, you, and Howard coming out when we had scaled the plan up about giving them training, because that's one of the things that when you go get a job and you don't have no training, they're not gonna hire you. I mean, and like we said before, these people were millionaires. You know what I mean? Out here, they were actually making thousands, thousands, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars out here in the street on the drug trade. So like, you have to really bring something to the table for these guys and these women and these children. Our youth study center is filled up right now to capacity right now. And it's nothing that our community is not doing. It's that we're not opening up any resources from all the area people that live in the area or that work in the area, in the corporate area, university area, that are given to our kids. They can go down there and sweep Franklin Field up. They can go out there and make $15 sweeping Franklin Field up. They can go out there and learn how to fix stuff. You know what I mean? They could take them along with them and do an apprenticeship with them, but they won't do it because why? Because they look at them other than human, and that's the biggest part of it all.
Interesting. I mean, super interesting from my perspective too. So Uwezo, same question. What are some simple solutions to ensure folks are connected to employment?
And Uwezo, you may need to unmute again.
Am I okay? Gerald, Sid is like my brother from another mother, seriously. But and I love the fact that he basically wakes me up every morning with a text message, But what he just said, it got a lot of interesting points, and some of what he said I don't really agree with. Because I'm seeing the after effects of the mentality that he's telling me that these people have. I understand where he's coming from, but like you saying, like it's crazy because a person out here will not want to take a certain kind of job because it's only paying a certain amount of wage, or it might seem demeaning. I worked on a trash truck. My stepfather had the biggest black trash company in Philadelphia since 1936. So I worked on a trash truck most of my life. I thought it was demeaning until I noticed how many women in the neighborhood wanted to be with me because of me getting a constant paycheck. Do you understand where I'm coming from? And I noticed the difference in a person's shoulders and attitude when they actually have a job. I don't believe, because I'm seeing the beginning and the after effects, I don't believe that a lot of these people want to resort to selling drugs or criminal activity in order to support themselves. It is the effects of where they messed up when they was younger. They dropped out of school, they played hooky, they was doing this, that, and the third. And now that, as the brother Marques was saying, now they don't have the skills. They don't have the mentality that will get them to a certain type of employment. So now they might have to be limited to flipping burgers, which seems demeaning. But when you look at it, it all comes down to, once again, we need platforms of real street talk to talk to these people, somebody who speak their language and get the point across, because I wouldn't care if you were selling drugs. When you first start off selling drugs, you still scraping the barrel. You still starting off small until you could build up. So quiet as is kept, the same entrepreneurial skills that is utilized for the drug dealer or the hustler or the panhandler, or who's on the corner with the stand selling clothes, it's the same thing that you do in the business world. It's just a different language, and you dealing with a different financial status. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like, once again, you can't change your people's actions until you change their mentality. So a lot of focus as far as this job situation is concerned. We need to be talking to these people out here. You got some people, everybody blessed with a gift. And whatever gift you blessed with, you should stay in that lane. If you're a talker, talk. If you're a walker, walk. If you can make things happen, then do that. Everybody that can make things happen can't talk. Everybody can talk, can make things happen. That's how I look at it. I
Very,
hope that
very
makes sense to somebody.
excellent. Marcus, same question. What are some simple solutions to ensure folks are connected to employment?
Look, I would say the first side on the corporate side is develop actual community partnerships and be a good community partner, not the type of usurious relationships that I've personally seen. Like, look, since I've been making the rounds in this nonprofit space, and not just nonprofits, right? Social entrepreneurship, whatever it is, there's more than a few players in this space who are they're in the misery business. Like they are operating on the business plan that I'm operating in a bad situation. There's a bunch of bad, societal elements here, and that's good for business. I'm getting administrative costs based on the fact that these people are in a bad position in life, and that to me is it's the antithesis of what a nonprofit or what a social entrepreneurship enterprise should be, and I think that's the first thing they got to do. The other thing is, like the brother said, I mean, a living wage. I mean, you can go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The first thing you have to do is secure your life, secure your health, secure your body, right? So how do you do that when you make substandard wages? It's impossible. So that's the number one thing that needs to happen. Next thing, and the way to get there also doesn't have to just be, here's this large amount of money. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, I do think some corporations can afford to pay it, but there are certifications and trades. So back in the days, our grandfathers, a lot of them, they worked living wage jobs at the time because they were able to apply for trades and get trades, or apply to learn a skill. And that skill then became marketable, and that became your baseline of pay because you knew this skill. There are tons of industries that can afford to lean in this direction. We call it the future of trades. You and I have talked a lot about this, Phil, about the ability to create new jobs and new trades within industries as they grow and as they evolve. But I think, and back to the hierarchy of needs, self-actualization. So a person is only going to be able to grow and sustain themselves if they fully believe that they are being the best version of who they think they are. So even if it is sweeping floors, like, listen, not some people are cool with that. Like, not everybody is going to be like, oh, I can't work on a trash truck. Some people will work on a trash truck. Some people, I had a young man, that's what he wanted to do. That was his ideal goal. We went out to a county, and this is a real story. We went out to the county. I tried to get him a job on a trash truck because he said, y'all want to work for sanitation. He wanted to work for the city. It was harder to get him in the city at the time. This is pre-COVID. And they just didn't need as many jobs as they need now. But at the time we went out to the county, it was just too far. We had to drive like 30 minutes and he didn't have a car. But everybody needs self-actualization, and jobs can provide that by letting people level up. Did you see you have somebody that has some skills, that has a good head on their shoulders, or that just says, this person's a hard worker, they show up every day, and they're here for me and my company. Let that person, start to rise in your company, whether you pay them more money, you give them more, responsibilities, or you give them another title so they can feel like, boom, I'm here and I'm a big part of this company, not that I'm just using this person until they're done.
That's interesting, because I also have seen just a lot of situations focused on what one perspective is, whether it's coming from the company side, and what another perspective is coming from the community side. So Uwezo brought up, something that a lot of folks talk about all the time. You have people who sell drugs and you have people who are in quote unquote normal business, and the skills are transferable, but there isn't a way for it to be recognized. How can we evaluate your skills as a drug dealer? Those conversations aren't happening. There's some, middle ground and some gray area for this. Again, the session is called Real Talk, right? There's some gray area in between there. But again, you're utilizing something that is already innate to a person and giving them extra training, et cetera. I will get off my small soapbox and ask the next question. Thank you, Phil.
Hold up, Phil. Hold up, Phil. We just gonna bang this out right real quick. So Miss Falaka Fatah and also Mr. David Fatah, right? They used to go around the city helping people from stopping from gang war, right? So what they done, right, to give everybody a job, who my elders, right, because they was gang warring out here, the city opened up and gave them jobs. That's what opened the tunnel for this to happen. Before that, there was no talking. There was no talking. So the pioneers of this, Mr. David Fatah and Miss Fallah Fatah, they're the ones who opened the door in West Philly and in other parts of the city for this to start to happen and go on. You know what I mean? So this is where you seen people who were gang warring, warlords on the block, 36th Street, down the Hub, down Mantua, all of this. Now all of a sudden, okay, they got city jobs, okay, to stop what was happening now, right? So when I go back again, right, and we talk about the other day when a little young 15-year-old got killed, right, from the mentality that's spreading in our community now. You know what I mean? Like I said before, you can offer anybody anything. It's going to be up for them to actually go and do it and take it upon themselves, right? We do have to change our mentality, but we have to do it in the right way. They have to see people who are successful that look like them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that not only look like them, but want to be a part of them. That don't ostracize them in that whole graphic right there. You know what I'm saying? So if we leaning towards that way and we saying, well, Black Lives Matter should matter, all lives should matter. And that would take that stigma out of there, because I'm not Black. You know what I mean? I'm a human being. And these kids and these people need to be treated as human beings. I don't know anybody's skill set until they come and show it. But once they show where they supposed to go, let God take them there. Only thing I'm here is just to help them. That's all I'm here to do. You understand?
My mom is flipping out in the background because she knows the exact thing that you're talking about. She was born in West Philly. We were raised in West Philly.
Exactly.
All of the above. But
exactly.
we can continue this conversation for another 4 hours, but I want to make sure I get to this last question specifically because we have a good amount of folks on the call from different backgrounds. There's folks from companies on the call. There's folks from higher education on the call, nonprofit, all of the above. So my question to all of you, the panelists, is what should companies know about the community and their unknown or untapped talent? We touched on this a little bit, but if you all want to kind of refine that specific statement, again, the question is, what should companies know about the community and their unknown or untapped talent? And let's start with Uwezo.
You muted. You muted.
Hey, Uwezo, you're muted.
I'm still going.
Yeah, while you were talking, I was trying to come up with a viable answer, because a lot of times you can theorize something without actually actualizing it, and they would need representatives to actually point out the talent in the community. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I don't see the whole community. I don't see, unless they have the time to actually get out there and talk to the people and learn who's who. You know, it's the same way when you, if you go to a job, you find out, well, who you go to see to do the filing, or who you go to see to do the faxing, or who you go to see to do this, that, and the third. So they would probably need representatives from the community to point out who's who and the talent that's actually in the community. Other than that, I don't see them actually being able to dedicate the time to doing that in a quick time element. I don't see that.
That's interesting. So, like, you're physically talking about folks from companies like actually going out to community and identifying talent that way, or are you talking about am I off the mark? You let me know.
No, exactly. They will need people. Okay, like for instance, like somebody like Gerald, who's long time originally Black Bottom, right? He knows Miss Ann that's been having a fruit stand for the last 25 years, yada, yada, yada. He knows so-and-so and so-and-so that's going to school for this, that, and the third. You have somebody like him and who else that actually point out the talent that's in the community. Otherwise, how can the people know?
They won't know. Yeah. Awesome. Yep. Marques, same question.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So one of the people I reached out to and I had a great conversation with was Adriana Abrazida. I want to mess up her name. And her nonprofit is the Kensington Community Trust. Oh, I didn't mess that up. And Professor Joseph Margules from Cornell, these are his philosophies that he reached out. She reached out to him and she asked, like, what are these things about, you know? And his community land trust philosophy was that not only is the way we've been doing this, you know, it's not as effective, but it's actually hurting communities because it doesn't protect the people you want to protect at the end of the day, which is the actual residents of the community. So like in their instance with like just property and gentrification is the ill they're trying to prevent. They installed representatives, like Uwezo said, they installed representatives within the community land trust itself, so that the operation itself is governed by the representatives of the community. So it's the same thing with jobs. So like if you don't know, how could you possibly know who's who? If you just arrive at a place, I have a nonprofit, my nonprofit's in Lansing, Michigan. I arrived in Lansing, Michigan. I just got hired for the nonprofit. I don't know any of these people. Like everybody's like, you know, Charlie and Steve, and they're just names. You know, you don't know their stories. You don't know what their background is. You don't know what their journeys have been. You don't know what their family structure is like. So all these things are attributable to it. So I agree. I think there needs to be representation within the organization itself to the community, almost direct bridges. And you can hire people from within the community and then pay them a living wage, which would also help. And then that can grow. But you definitely need people from within the community. That's no question.
Got it. Yep. Understand that completely. Gerald, do you have the last comment on the same questions? What can companies know about the untapped talent in the community? What should they know?
Well, they should know that there is a lot of people down there, like they found out with Marques, that can do other things than sweep floors. No disrespect to anybody sweep floors, but what used to happen back in the day was like, say like you needed a job, Mr. Darrell, you go around there and Mr. Darrell, tell Mr. Darrell you're looking for a summer job. You go there and talk to Mr. Lucian Blackwell and tell him you need some you trying to get a job. You know, these people you could just walk up to at that time, and they will put you down and take you in and get case manage you and everything and show you the right way how to go about getting a job. And it's the same thing that these brothers said. Like you have to hire, these corporations will have to spend some money and hire people from within, you know what I mean, who are working in this, so that they can bring up viable people, you know what I mean, that they can use and utilize for their business. So like if I had I bring home ex-offenders all the time, right? So one thing about them is they trying to get a job, they trying to do this, they trying to do that. I said, that's all fine and good with me, but I need to know every day that I need for you to be consistent. That's what I tell everybody I deal with. I want you to be consistent. And the reason why I want them to be consistent is because consistency breeds opportunity, it breeds love, it breeds all these good positive things that will grow in them. You know what I'm saying? But if they learning negativity every day, if they doing negative stuff every day, then guess what happens?
Yeah.
It never changes. So we want stuff to change. Like I just told you, the Youth Study Center is full up with young people, young Black men. Let's just put it there, and women too. There's girls over there too. You know what I mean? Now, you have an opportunity to take a corporation, these corporations, Drexel, Penn, whatever it is, get with the community person. Let's go up there. Let's turn this into, now you want to train them? Let's train them, because now we got a trainable ideal situation for them. So now they won't come home and commit crime. You understand? We can go up Greater Ford, we can go up Huntington, we can go all these different places, right? And do the same thing. And make sure that when these people coming home, that they coming home in the right fashion, they coming home to a job. And I tell you what's so funny. I came home in 1993 or 94, whatever year it was. I came home with a guy named Stephen Blackburn. I want you to look this up, right? Stephen Blackburn was convicted of murder. He got out. He beat his murder. Me and him got out the same day. We used to run a yard together, right? He went home as the head director of the mayor's office of community service, right? He couldn't get me a job because I was still on probation. And that's why I couldn't get a job. So as long as I was on probation, I couldn't get a job. And that's why I'm still in that flux right now. But you understand what I'm saying? They made him director from jail from the of the mayor's office of community service. And then on top of that, Phil, when I had to go over there to use it for ex-offenders, guess who was getting them jobs through 311? Gerald Bolling.
Hmm.
And I couldn't get myself a job. And that's all true right there. So look it up. His name is Stephen Blackburn. He got out in 93, 94. He was the director of the mayor's office of community service. He left prison and came home and ran that office. And he did a good job. You see what I'm talking about?
We've hit on so many topics, I think, related to not only job placement, but the potential for careers, workforce development, mentality, networking, being able to be rooted, like physically rooted within a community, understanding that there is, there's black, white, and gray and all that stuff, but some of the simple solutions are literally just sitting in front of our face. So I'd love to transition into any questions. Natalie, I'm not sure if we have questions in the chat or anything, but folks are also open to unmuting themselves, asking questions to our panelists. The time is open for folks now. Natalie, do we have any?
Yes, we actually just got one. So from Sonyet, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. How connected are local civic associations to young people, community leaders, whether formal or informal, needs and aspirations of the communities? Essentially, I'd like to hear your thoughts on these formalized organizations and how connected they are to who they are thought to represent. Thanks for the discussion.
I think that's a Marques question.
Yeah, so I think our civic is doing a great job. I think look, so our major organizations are the CDC and the Mantua Civic Association. Shout out to Mount Vernon Manor and MCA. But they're both doing a great job. But it's a civic association and it's housing. So there are certain pipelines that are easier to build with youth and with young people, like schools, because kids go to schools, or recreation, because kids do recreation. And I think that's what's missing right now in our community to kind of complete that pipeline, which is why I started Mantua United. Is because the idea of having this like breeding ground of positions where you're putting kids into arts, and whether it's dodgeball, or whether it's kickball, or exposing them to different alternative sports for them what they've never seen, like lacrosse, rugby, tennis, golf, or anything else. I think those are the type of situations that you can build that pipeline. And so now you can start to connect to people when they're younger. So now as you see them grow into young, mature adults, you'll say, hey, remember that thing you always talked about wanting to do? I've connected you to an organization. Now you're going to go do that thing. You're going to be a scientist for a day. You're going to go be a realtor today. You're going to hang out with a doctor or a pediatrician. And now we start building pipelines and start kind of, distilling hope in people versus when they get to the point where things feel more dreadful or you're despair because you don't feel like I can never get to this place. There's no path for me to get there.
I think that's a good point to talk about. One, because lots of conversations within education, specifically within STEM education, kind of boils down to a bunch of things. But one thing I wanted to point out is the exposure opportunities, right? If you don't know what exists, then you don't know that it exists. If you don't know that you could be other things besides doctors, lawyers, et cetera, that there's other opportunities, then you don't know. I had a conversation with a high school student who didn't know certain things existed. And because we brought those individuals in, we had those individuals kind of come to their school and work with them. It was an eye opener for them. And that's something that I think is going to be consistent, or it needs to be more consistent, that exposure opportunity, just more opportunities to get even young people or even adults, right? There are adults who are looking for different opportunities, adults who have been in either the workforce for a certain period of time, or they're looking to do reskill options. Those are things that are also things that need to be more consistent. I will again step down off my small soapbox and open it up to folks who have other questions. Or Gerald or Uwezo, did you want to respond to the question that Sanae posed at all? Or we can just open it up to other folks who have questions.
Well, just to say, Sanae, the Black Bottom is not like a civic organization or anything like that. We're actual tribe. We're actual Black and Indian unit. And we had no representation in our own community at this point. So we're trying to do that now. but all the kids love us. They they love us because we're family. But like as far as the organization and all that, we have none of that. Like we don't we're trying to get an RCO now to start working in our own community and having say so in our own community, because everybody from the outside is having to say so about our community. You know what I mean? And that's not good. You know what I mean? It's not good.
Other comments?
Yeah, again, I'll just not to keep doing a shameless plug, because it's not just Mantua United, but I really believe recreation is the single biggest unweaponized, untapped resource in plugging opportunities to parents and kids, because they both interact with it at the same time. So there's not many things like that. Like when you go to your job, your kids aren't there. When your kids go to school, you kind of aren't there, and you normally aren't called there until it's like something kind of not great, or it's like a semester, or it's like all right, cool, I want to check in with your grades, things are good, okay, good, and then I kind of retreat back into my own thing. But recreation, I mean, you talk about school, like talk about plays, right? You can go to drama club, you can see your kids perform, you can see your kids play an instrument, you can go to the t-ball game, you're there connecting with other parents, and now your coaches, right? Your ballet instructors, like the people who are teaching your children how to play these sports and who are interacting with them every day, and you're coming out and it's nice weather and it's cool, it's kind of you're away from the job. Now's the time to say, hey, by the way, there's this job I know about in biopharma where you don't have to have a college degree, and now you get to make $65,000 a year. Oh yeah, and it's coming from a source you trust. And that thing right there, it can exist in every marginalized community in America. And if you build that pipeline, I think that rivals anything that that the drug dealers have done, that prisons have done, because you can interact with every single group, because everybody does recreate. Everybody recreates, whether it's sports, whether it's art, whether it's just you hanging out with your buddies. There's a recreation group for every single human on this planet.
Excellent point. Keeping the floor open to folks who might have questions. If there are no questions, I certainly have another question to fill the rest of the time that we have, which is very limited. I'll give a few seconds if folks have any thoughts or any questions. All right, so for our panelists, so there's a collective amount of wisdom here, and part of my my role has been to do as much research as possible about things that have happened in the past, maybe wheels that may have been reinvented, looking at different programs that might have been really successful but didn't have funding, so had to close down. So in your experience, in kind of like your time, either within this like workforce development field or just knowing about job placement and careers, have there been programs either through city government, through nonprofits, through companies that you've seen be successful, that you've seen have had a really positive impact? It may have stopped at some point, right? Because of, like I said, funding or something else has happened. But has there been any programs or initiatives just in your time that you've seen have been really, really amazing?
Of course. You had OIC, Reverend Sullivan's situation out there. You had Rick Young from down the bottom. He's a little bit further down 34th Street. He had the guys out there cleaning up and all that. That was all good and positive. I don't know why the guys stopped. I know OIC is probably still running, but however, I don't know their situation. But they did a good job. I have to give it to them. They slowed some things down. They gave us a chance to think about some things, and hopefully we can start to mirror those all around the city again, and just go further with it. You know what I mean? And hopefully we can get y'all support.
Uwezo, have you seen any programs that have been super successful or really successful, very, very positive?
And you'll just need to unmute again. I'm so sorry.
All right. Ironic. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah, you're good.
Ironically, Gerald, my mom was a job developer for OIC when it was at Corinthian Avenue, and then moved down to the old Stetson building on 3rd and Burks. I know exactly what you're talking about. I wanna try to connect this stuff together because I love what the brother Marques said, and that was a great place. You know, the recreation centers and the things of that nature was a great place for us when we was coming up. I still got my membership card to Moreland Center at 25th and Diamond in 1966. So I know exactly what you're talking about. But at the same time, I'm seeing where all of this that we're talking about can go. And I just want to plant this seed. You know, the social scientists say that there's 3 things that a people have to have in order to gain and maintain respect in this world. 1, you got to be able to provide for yourself. On a personal level, that's called having money. On a collective level, it's called the people's economics. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. The second thing that you got to have is you got to be able to govern yourself. You know, you got to have discipline. And discipline is only self-control. And if you don't have it, then you're going to have to acquire it and you're going to have to learn it. So that brings in the education classes, the social skills classes, the anger management courses, the healthy lifestyle courses, things of that nature, the self-awareness courses. And the third thing that you got to have, and it's mostly important in dealing with the time and the elements that we're dealing with now, is you got to be able to defend yourself. I hope you understand where I'm coming from, because when these things grow that we're talking about, we're going to have to have I don't know what you want to call it, a system, some kind of collection thing of people that's able to protect these things that we're building, these things that are being implemented, these things that are being put in place. You know, that's all I really got to say. I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes, excellent, excellent. So we are just about out of time. I'd really like to thank our panelists for coming out. Again, this is really something that is the start of the conversation. We really wanted to bring the perspective of folks who work in the community to you, to the audience, to really hear what they have to say, but not only hear what they have to say, but for them to provide solutions to some of the crazy things that are consistently happening over and over again. Again, this has been Real Talk. I'll probably talk with Science Center folks internally to say, like, this is the first of many Real Talks. We'll probably hit on other topics as we move along. But I definitely want to say thank you very, very much to Marques, Uwezo, and Gerald for spending their time this afternoon and sharing their collective wisdom and knowledge. So thank you, gentlemen. Natalie, anything else that we want to wrap up with? Are we good?
No. Thank you guys so much for this amazing discussion. Thank you, Phil, for leading it.